we've found that, the Power Four schools are the ones that tend to get most of the shine in the media outlets, whether it's Flow Track or Flow Wrestling. And so we've kind of taken a different approach being junior college athletes. We started covering junior college wrestling and cross country, and then NAIA, Division II, Division III. And in growing the podcast, now we've had some Division I coaches that have come. We just had Jeremy Sudbury on from Iowa State. And so we're just trying to highlight people that are doing great things and programs and stories that people need to hear about, kind of creating conversations that we wish we would have heard back when we were going through the recruiting process. And then in doing that, whenever we can connect with people from New Jersey, whether it's high school coaches or college coaches or people like yourself, we're stoked to do that. And
Awesome.
you've had an impact on a lot of people coming through the ranks of cross country. I was right around the same age as Adam Goucher. I graduated from college in '98, so I was kind of in real time going through that, but then diving into the book was amazing. And then Jimmy and I lived in Colorado for quite a few years, and I actually got reintroduced to the book, found it in like a little free public library in front of someone's house. I scooped it up. It was much different rereading it after having lived in Colorado and then kind of connecting to like when they went to Salida and Buena Vista to do their training
Yeah.
camp and that sort of stuff. And Jimmy and I actually ventured up to Magnolia Road a couple times to do some runs up there. So it
Nice.
hit a little bit different after living in Colorado. So we're really excited to chat with you tonight.
Very cool, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
Pops.
La- Ladies and gentlemen, howdy and aloha. We are here, you were there, and you are now rocking with the best. And we appreciate you tuning in for another episode of Airey Bros Radio. Tonight we are joined by Chris Lear, co-author of the new book, Beyond Fast, How a Renegade Coach and His Unlikely High School Team Revolutionized Distance Running, co-written with Andrew Greif and Sean Brosnan. But before we get rolling, y'all know the drill. Make sure you hammer that like button and are subscribed on YouTube. Drop a comment, every review, and share helps us grow and give back to the sports we love. And as always, this episode is fueled by Black Sheep Endurance for all your ultramarathon and nutrition coaching needs. And let's not forget why we're here. We're here to shine a light on the programs, athletes, and storytellers we wish we had access to growing up. So if you love running, coaching, culture, and the process behind greatness, this one is for you. On to tonight's guest, Chris Lear. He is the co-author, as I mentioned, of Beyond Fast, chronicling how Newbury Park cross country and track and field reshaped high school distance running. He's also the author of Running with the Buffaloes, the cult classic look into Mark Wetmore's 1998 Colorado team. And he also authored Sub 4, Alan Webb, and the Quest for the Fastest Mile, capturing a teen phenom's pursuit of greatness. Chris's athletic accomplishments while he was at Pingree, he was a 409 miler and a New Jersey state champion and a cross-country standout as well. And then he matriculated to Princeton University, where he was a two-time captain, All-Ivy and All-East. Without further ado, it's an honor and pleasure to have you joining us this evening. We do greatly appreciate your time. Chris Lear, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, guys. Appreciate being here. And I love the focus on the stories that might not get the mainstream coverage, especially the JUCO angle. I don't know if you guys are fans of Last Chance U.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Big time.
But yeah, I love that program. I keep hoping there's another season around the bend. But
well, Jimmy, I don't know if you guys, when you talked, Jimmy told you he's a graduate of UC Denver Film School.
oh, nice.
And so our thought was that we should do a Last Chance U with like a cross country program or with a wrestling team in the junior college system and kind of give a different approach and an outlook to what those sports are like for those athletes.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. I would love to see that.
So, and it's been cool because we've connected with a lot of coaches and athletic directors in the Jayhawk Conference, which is, the big one in season 3 and season 4. And some of the coaches and athletic directors that we talked to had some interactions with Coach Jason Brown. So it was fun to kind of talk about that stuff because I think he was a fan favorite for different reasons.
Yeah, and on Cameo too. So yeah.
Chris, before we get too far into it, anywhere you would like us to direct the fans, either to find you online or find the book where they can purchase it, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Beyond Fast, Running the Buffalo, Sub 4, they're really all sold wherever books are sold. So whatever works for you, works for us. So whether it be Amazon or right through Simon & Schuster for Beyond Fast, really whatever works for you is fine with us and great with us. Thank you for supporting it.
Awesome. We'll put all that stuff in the show notes for you as well. Chris, probably the two most important questions we're going to ask you all, even being a Jersey guy, we ask all our Jersey people that get this question. I think we know the answer, but we're going to ask anyway. Is it pork roll or Taylor ham for you?
It's a great question. I did grow up in North Jersey. However, at elementary school lunch once a week, we had pork roll sandwiches.
We got one, Rich.
So for me, it's always been pork roll.
Wow, that's awesome and unique, especially as an Ivy League guy, Jim. You know, those Ivy League coaches, they love to call it Taylor ham. And then the other one we got for you, Chris, being a North Jersey guy, but having spent some time at Princeton, is Central Jersey a real place?
Oof, that is a great question, because you do have the geographical north-south split that's pretty clear. Is it different culturally? I'm going to go with yes.
Okay.
All right.
Good
Two
answer.
for two.
2 for 2. Sweet. And then, Chris, we like to present through lines to our guests so our fans kind of know how we make the world a little bit smaller over here. Jimmy and I both went to Point Pleasant Borough High School, and someone that was a little bit older than me, you and your brother tangled with quite a bit. I can remember there was a picture in the Star Ledger, I think after the 1992 Meet of Champions. It might have been your brother in the 3200, but I ran with Terrence Fagan growing up. So there's a little through line for you and making the world a little bit smaller and having a New Jersey connection there.
Yeah, I remember him. He was a real tough competitor, and I do think he was more of a longer distance. I let my brother do most of the work there, and so he probably. I also struggled with the longer stuff, so Terrence would have been way ahead of me in most races.
Yeah, even to this day, he's one of the most mentally tough runners that I've ever encountered as a competitor. It's just being as often injured as he was, but then to be able to step on the track and do some of the things he did, it was just a testament to how tough he really was as a runner, just because it's like these other guys are doing a lot more than you are, but you're just tough.
Mixing it up. Yeah, he always struck me as that, as having that toughness, not knowing him well at all. So that rings true to me from my experience.
And I can remember there was cross country. I think Rich Morris had beat him at the county meet, maybe, or short conference, one of the two. But he had held on to that, and we had a dual meet in track in like early March. And he just went out and ran 9:36 and ran Rich Morris into the ground. Rich was probably not taking it too seriously, but Terrence was like, I'm going to get vengeance. And yeah, in a dual meet in March in the wind, he went out and ran 9:36 like it was nothing.
I love it.
But nowadays, 9:36 isn't really that fast anymore, though, is it?
Amazing, right? Yeah, it's a whole different sport now, really.
So, Chris, what's your origin story to the sport? You know, we all have our origin stories, how we got into it. We're curious, how did you and your brother find running, and how did that lead you down the road of becoming an author?
Yeah, my brother Tim and I are twins. I think he had grown up, grew up in Summit, and we played all the sports, the mainstream sports, I guess, right? Like baseball, tennis, soccer. We ran, but I think running was the first where we had some success. We had like a city championship 1 mile race, all the public elementary schools, and I think in the 4th grade, and we went 1-2 in that. And we had a gym teacher, Ken Keebler, I'll always remember him, who for whatever reason was like a running fanatic. And we had a bunch of kids at the elementary school that we went to that happened to also like running, and he would have morning gym before school. And I think by the time we're in 6th grade, you could go early to school and like run laps around the soccer field. And he had a Run for Your Life, I think it was called. But you would have like a 50-mile, or no, it was a sub 8-minute club, sub 7-minute, sub 6-minute, and you'd get a T-shirt that had like a winged foot, like sub 6-minute club, and those things. I remember really wanting to have one of those. And he was just really, I think that was probably the first way I got introduced to it. Is Mr. Keeler was just really enthusiastic about it, and then running in the town race. And I think like a lot of things, if you have a little bit of early success, you want to keep going. And Yeah, we never really did much beyond that. Didn't do club running or anything. Just that was the race we would do. And then come middle school, I tried other sports. My brother went right into running, and I played football in seventh grade on the worst team in school history. I kept the bench warm, and I saw him on the cross country course out there winning and beating kids, and was like, okay, that looks like a little more fun than what I'm doing here. So, still was not committed to running, and ended middle school in the spring. I didn't run track till high school. I played baseball. I played tennis. I didn't know what sport I was going to do, and then eventually in high school, I was going to play tennis my freshman year, but I was like, look, if I'm going to do it, I want to be good. And there was a local tennis club near us, and I had my mom take me. But as you know, I didn't really know about the good kids, what to do the junior tennis circuit and whatnot. And so I went to the first practice, and they had me playing with kids that were like third grade, fourth grade, and I quickly got the sense like I wasn't going to get a chance even. So I was like, you know what? There's no politics in track. I'm going to run track, and that was that.
Right on. Was one more, Jim. Sorry. Were you and your brothers, were you guys feed off of each other? Was it a healthy, competitive environment as brothers? Jimmy and I know that sometimes things can get a little heated, maybe more so on the wrestling mat. Maybe sometimes there's some tears shed on the track after an interval session. How was that for y'all?
Yeah, Tim's still in Jersey. Tim's the head of school at Pingree now. Um, and we were. He was always better at the longer stuff, and I was better at the shorter stuff. But we met at the mile, and the mile we were always kind of neck and neck. And so we, I think I remember being kind of frustrated because my initial experiences running, and like I was trying to remember today. I think I ran cross country in eighth grade. I hate to say it. I don't have many distinct memories. But I remember is like my freshman year in high school, my brother finishing a good, 1-2 minutes ahead of me. And that's frustrating, right? I was known as like the slow twin, and he was the good twin. And, come spring, he couldn't, he was close, but he could never get me in the mile. So we would run dual meets and whatnot, and like I would run the short stuff, he would run the long stuff, and then I think it was the end of my freshman year, he was sick, and so they said, Chris, why don't you jump up to the mile? Because I started out as a quarter miler, and I remember my first ever mile in high school, I snuck under 5 minutes, and I remember going to school the next day, being like, telling my friends like, you know what I ran, sub five, that was fun, and yeah, so it was competitive but healthy. And then we really as we got older, we were able to push one another, and in college, we ran together, and just unfortunately we both struggled a lot with injury, and so it was like very rare that we had the chance we were both healthy and competing and at the same time. But yeah, it was a fun, healthy dynamic, I'd say.
Right.
Chris, did you always know you wanted to be an author?
uh I think when I started getting into it, right, like my sophomore year in high school, and in track, as I said, like I just broke 5 minutes as a freshman, and we had a great head coach for the track team named Vic Nazario, and he brought in a woman named Meg Waldron to be the distance coach, and she's one of the greatest runners in New Jersey high school history. And we had a team meeting beginning of spring. My brother and I played basketball in the winter, and then we remember going, never forget it, sitting in a classroom, and he introduced her to the team, and she was up at the front of the room, and she said, when I was in high school, I ran 2:08 and 4:44 and 10 low for 2 miles. And I remember sitting there thinking, she's better than me in every single one of those races. And I was like, I better pay attention to what she has to say. And, we went up to her at the end of that meeting, my brother and I remember being like, you think maybe we can break 450 this year, or maybe run 445? She was like, you guys are going to run 430. And at the time in New Jersey, the state meet of champions was being won around 415. And I was like, wow, that seems really too fast. Like, how am I going to do that? And then she told me, she had 3 high school teammates in the early 80s that Bernard's High School who ran under 410. And there was a kid who ran 419 and couldn't make the varsity. And I remember being super struck by that, right? Because I was like, every decade, she was about a decade older, everyone gets faster, better, right? And so what happens? And so then that's where over the next couple of years, I got to learn about the tradition that they had at Bernard's High School. And I just got really into the sport. And so I started reading everything I could. And so I didn't know that I was going to be an author one day, but I was the kid who would read every copy of Track and Field News, read the few stories that were there. And that if there was something to read about it, I read it. And I think, if anything, I just remember being frustrated at the lack of good stories. So I love nonfiction, sports, Friday Night Lights, Season on the Brink, things like that. And I was like, doesn't this exist for running? You'd go to the bookstore back then, you'd see, how to run your fastest 5K while eating donuts and sipping coffee. None of that had any appeal to a high school kid. And so like Once a Runner was the first book that really sparked my imagination. And I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. And I'd say the spark was lit. My interest was there, but I didn't have a conscious plan to be an author really until I had the idea to write my first book, which ended up being in Colorado, Running with the Buffaloes. I did a ton of writing in college, but not with the end goal of being an author.
So with Running with the Buffaloes being your first book, and you said you did a ton of writing in college, did you find after you wrote it or during writing it, you had some issues just based on writing stories and not being educated per se in writing?
I didn't. I mean, I was, I guess, in terms of being an author, I was kind of self-taught. I had written a thesis that was very highly reviewed, and I think that planted the seed. My advisor had said to me after I graduated that it was up for consideration for best thesis, which I didn't know. And she felt like if I put a little more work into it, I could publish it. And I was kind of blown away by that because that just wasn't a thought. It was really an academic kind of exercise, right? But I guess that kind of planted the seed, having gone through that process, 100-some page paper. And that's really independent work. So I think that kind of planted the seed and prepared me somewhat. And then when I decided I was going to do it, I read all those great sports books, every single one that was out there that was good. I read it, and I read it, and not just I would read them to see like, okay, what I liked about it, and then I would kind of deconstruct it, figure out, what is it that I like about how the author's doing it, what makes me want to turn the page, and then that's kind of how I prepared. So probably maybe unconventional, but that's what worked for me.
We had a former guest on, a New Jersey guy, Martin Rooney, and he's written a bunch of books. And he said in order to write a book, you got to read 100 books. Don't quote me on that. He might have said
Yeah.
more. But do you feel that that's the case? You gotta read a lot to see what the other people are doing?
I totally agree with that. I think, great readers, big readers make good writers, right? And because eventually you find your own style. But I think reading a lot of things, reading things critically, ultimately figuring out what you like, what you don't like, um, is a big part of the process. And it certainly was for me. And it was interesting because I wasn't like a voracious reader outside of the niche that I enjoyed. But once I graduated college, especially, I lived out in California for a few years before I moved to Colorado, and kind of free from the constraints of having to study and do all the stuff for school. Uh, that was where like I really even dove in further and just I read and read and read. And but yes, I agree with that assessment wholeheartedly.
Chris, what was your major at Princeton?
The least financially rewarding major, I think sociology, and I did like a certificate in American Studies. I remember there wasn't anything pre-professional back then. You couldn't be a business major or a law major. So I remember just flipping a coin, honestly. It was like history, English, sociology. And I really, my sophomore year, I guess we had to decide what to do. And, um, back then the thing I really cared about was running, and school. I was like, well, I didn't think it really mattered which of those avenues I went down. And it was really all about kind of learning how to analyze information, write, read all that. And so it wasn't something I thought I was overly concerned about or put too much thought in, for better or worse. John McPhee was, one of the widely considered one of the best nonfiction writers ever. He was a professor at Princeton, and that's one of the things I regret, right? I could have had the opportunity to take a class with him, and I didn't, and that was a big miss on my part.
Okay. So I'm curious, when you did Running with the Buffaloes, like in real time, you were with the team, and when you wrote Sub 4, you were with Alan and those guys in Michigan. So was that the same case with Beyond Fast?
Yeah, totally different, right?
Totally different.
Yeah, I wasn't there at all, and I really felt like that kind of participatory journalism, like a big fan of Hunter S. Thompson, and that when I was young, covering running, in each of those instances, like I got back in shape somewhat when I went to Michigan. Alan was one of the best runners in the world at that point, but I had quit competing, but I was able to get fit enough to run with him on his easy days. And I really felt like that was the best way to kind of cover the story and capture the story. Obviously, 20 some years later, physically, no way I could do that. I really had no plans on doing another book. I've had opportunities through the years, and I have respect for the process and how much work is involved. And Sean approached me, and we had a lot of conversations, and I was well aware, primarily through Let'sRun.com, which was founded by one of my roommates from college, and one of my good friends, Robert Johnson. Through their website primarily, I knew what they had done. I still follow the sport, and I was amazed at what they did. And so, getting to know Sean and seeing, I was like, listen, just tell me the story, man. And I'm curious. And I think that curiosity, eventually we were like, yeah, let's do this thing. And we also were working on a tight time frame for giving him and where he was in his life and what he wanted to do. And so we also recruited Andrew Greif, great writer, to do it. And the three of us got it done and got Sean's story done. So yeah, intellectually, that was part of the appeal for me, was this is going to be totally different. And Andrew covered Newbury Park when he was at the LA Times, and so he had that firsthand knowledge of it. And the way that I looked at it was, I thought this was a real asset to have someone coming in having been there, and someone coming in having not been there, and having the naivete to be like, Sean, I need to know more about this. I need to know more about this. I want to flesh this out. And so yeah, totally different, and obviously a collaborative effort between the three of us. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
What did that collaborative effort look like? Because in comparison to the previous two, you're doing solo and you're with the teams and stuff like that. Obviously that was a new experience. What was that like?
It was great. It ended up just being like really seamless. I mean, it really starts and ends with Sean, right? And for Andrew and I figuring out how to best communicate his story, and so I think it's his story, it's his voice, and the biggest challenge was for Andrew and I to figure out how to structure it, and how to flesh it out, how to do it. And Andrew lived in LA, lived around the corner from him. I live across the country. So it was really beneficial for him to be there and also be able to kind of get firsthand from Sean stuff when we needed it, and then go back to him and say, hey, we want to flesh this out, flesh that out. It just worked. Unconventional. But I think it's the book is way better off because Andrew's a stud writer and he was able to do a ton of work with this. And we each kind of brought something different to the table, but ultimately, um, the biggest, I think the biggest judge kind of in this case of how we did is Sean. It's his story. And, he's really, really psyched with how everything turned out. And and then the kids too. And some of the kids have read it and I've talked to them and they were like, man, it was really cool to read about it. There's stories in there that they didn't know about, hearing it from Sean for the first time. I feel pretty good that we hit the mark at the end of the day.
Yeah, I would agree. It's a great book. I finished up the last chapter last night. But again, just like the previous two books, and I'm a geek, a running geek as well. So I devour running books. So whenever I can get my hands on something that I like them too, because it kind of gets me back into the flow of my daily reading practice. Like I could pick up a book and I know I'm not going to want to put it down, and then once I finish it, then I can dive into another book. So
That's awesome.
you got me back up and rolling into my reading practice. So I do greatly appreciate it, and I really enjoyed the story.
Thank you. Thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah, and just to throw you some more flowers to add on to what Rich said, I listened to the book in less than 48 hours, and I was a little hesitant because I'm not as big as running geek as Rich. I have it in my blood, but I tend to push it away sometimes. I loved it. I couldn't stop listening to it, and I found a lot of similarities with Sean just on his journey of going to train with some of the best people and not questioning should I be here or I shouldn't be running with these people or learning from these people. Rich and I have done that in our lives. So I was right in from the get-go of that. And then how he coached the team, talked to the team, I just couldn't get enough of it. So really good job.
Thank you. Yeah. No, and I think Sean's journey was, as we got to know uh, the story, his story, we really felt like that was integral to it, right? And his path, and he's really kind of a 101 in how he came to doing what he did. And I think all the great coaches, and I just listened to an interview you guys had on your podcast with the Drew University coach, right? And everyone is to a degree a product of their mentors. And a lot of people, they coach the way that they have one or two mentors in their life that they can draw from. And certainly there's a lot of books and places where you can learn, um, learn, especially not more than ever, right? It's kind of at your fingertips. But, Sean really, to have such diverse experiences from such successful coaches, some of the best in the world, and to really see that interpersonal dynamic, the way he coaches, that one-on-one interaction with the athlete is kind of fundamental to what he views as something that really separates him from the rest. And I agree with it. So I think as we got to know Sean and the story, we really felt like, hey, um, this is a big part of it, because that wouldn't have happened without him. Uh, and he was really, I think, the sum of all his experiences. And I mean, like you guys, I did not make it to the top level of the sport, right? I loved it, didn't make it. And I think part of the reason I became an author was to satisfy my own curiosity, right? Seeing Goucher back in the day and seeing these guys and being like, man, like what do they have that I don't have? Why did I not make it? And what do they do? And I think Sean was right there on the cusp of being really good, but he wasn't. And I think that oftentimes the best coaches come from that background, right? It's not necessarily Derek Jeter, but maybe it's the fringe player that goes on to be the great manager because they've had to really struggle and learn in so many different ways. And that you can really use that to your advantage with young athletes, as we found out with Sean.
What parallels did you see with the University of Colorado, Alan Webb, and Newbury Park, and what differences did you see?
It's a good question. I think in terms of similarities, creating a culture where you're totally bought into what you're doing, and uh, that certainly is part of it. And ultimately, I think part of why with Webb leaving was probably the right decision. Because I think he was really kind of tormented in some ways a bit during his time there he really had such a special connection with his high school coach, not necessarily knowing if this was the right environment for him. So I guess to distill it further, the kids that really thrive in all those environments have total faith and trust in what they're doing. And I think that's a massive asset, right? When you have that. Different styles with all the coaches. But I think at the end of the day, they created environments where it wasn't a chore. And it was cool to try to see how good you could be. And I think a lot of kids are craving that. And they would love to be a part of something that feels like it's bigger than themselves. And when you can do that, it's amazing what can happen. And so I think that's probably the kind of one unifying thing about the three programs. And then in terms of the differences, I think it's like they're very different people, and it's just that's one thing of the beauties about I'm sure about wrestling too, and running. Like there's more than one way to do it, and there is no one recipe. And I saw it firsthand with all these guys. They all go about it differently, but they've all had tremendous success. And I think probably something that was really re-emphasized with me with Sean is I think the magic comes from that interpersonal connection between the athlete and the coach, and believing that this is where you're going to thrive. And I think he had examples of that in all three of those places.
One thing I had a good chuckle about is when he would tell the kids they were running a certain distance, but he would mark it so they would run faster or get the desired response that he wanted that they weren't giving him. Was there anything about his coaching style or how he talked to the kids that kind of surprised you or shocked you?
Well, I went into it just with just that curiosity that I think you guys have, right? Like, you see 4 different boys running under 4 minutes in the mile in high school at one public high school. It's like, what are you doing? Like clearly, when you're a standard deviation better than anyone ever in the history of the sport, like there's something different. And sure enough, when you look at even how they structure training at the beginning of the summer, how they do it with this, continual emphasis and development of speed, the way they structured their training was different than any high school program I've ever seen. And so I think that was part of it. And part of it was also that kind of continually upping the ante from year over year, right? Kind of like squeezing it down a little bit, asking for a little more commitment. So I can't say like it wasn't necessarily a surprise. It was more of I get it. Like, okay, yeah, this is very different, and I really feel like there's a lot of coaches and programs out there that could read this book and that it could really change things. I had one coach tell me like this could change the sport in America. And I think it could with, when people start emulating what they do, because that's for me, that's part of it, right? It's just, once you understand, there's going to be that kid out there that will find out about 5 years from now who is just so hungry to be good and wants to, get his hands on everything and read it. And now you have a template of like, this is what it takes. And they're going to read it, they're going to see it, and they're going to be like, okay, now the path is laid out. And I think that makes it a lot, it facilitates the next generation kind of growing. So that was a big motivation for me personally in doing this. I was like, I think these stories are critical. They're really important to know. I mean, you guys remember the high school team in Indiana? Like that couple sub 9 minute guys in the 70s, like Rudy Chapa, those, right? But it was all like legends, and you hear like bits and pieces, and you knew nothing about it. And it would be like, wow, that would have been great to have that story and to really understand, how these guys are total outliers in their time. And so, hopefully we have we've created something, and Sean, Sean, they did it, right? Those kids did it. Sean did it, and hopefully with the book, we've, kind of honored that, and it'll have that. If it has that kind of impact, I know that would, for the three of us, that would be amazing to see. That would be like the ultimate gift from this.
When you saw, Nico just ran at the World Championships. He ran in Paris at the Olympics as well too, and Lex and Leo are at Stanford right now. How are the other boys doing? Are they still? I think the two brothers went to NAU. Are they still there?
Oh yeah. Colin was the second fastest collegian of all time in the 1500, as a junior, and then last year, he made the USA final, 800 meters. I think it was a little bit more challenging season. His brother Aaron is on the team with him at Northern Arizona as well. A lot of those kids went on to run in college. One of the boys ran to Colorado School of Mines. Chase Ashburner ran for Colorado, had a nice running career in 28-30 in Colorado. And that also was something that is you guys thinking about as you guys ask these questions. But one of the reasons that I want to do it is that as I got to understand Sean and you see the kid's success going forward, this isn't a story of a coach who squeezes everything out of these kids and they go to college and they just regress. And it's like, man, they just left. He didn't leave anything else in the tank. Virtually every one of these kids goes to college and does better. And that to me is really a testament to like, he did it the right way. And certainly the commitment they put into it, just, I find it mind boggling, right? For like a high school coach to be that obsessed and to put that kind of work in. And so I should say, like, as much as this kind of, I think, lays out a template, it doesn't mean it's easy to do. Mark Wetmore did that with Colorado with running with the Buffaloes. Like he didn't put any limits on me as to like, you can't write about this, you can't write about that. There's no secret, like there's no secret training where he's like, oh, you can't share that, the secret workout. He put it out there. And I think that's because it's one thing to know what to do. It's another thing to execute it all together.
Yeah. And it's another thing to get everyone to buy into doing it as well too. And I'm down here in South Carolina now coaching cross country, and we're little by little, we're getting the buy-in. This is my first season with the team and changing the habits from the previous years. And you can see, it's a beautiful thing when you start to see that buy-in, and you're getting them to believe in themselves, when in the beginning, maybe, like same with Sean, telling them, in this amount of time, we're going to be state champions. And kids and parents are like, who is this crazy person? But, little by little, you start making progress. And, I've never seen it before, but the last 5K that we ran, I had 17 kids run and 17 kids ran PRs.
That's amazing. That's awesome. So, that must have been like, what a great experience for you.
Yeah. I mean, it's great for me. I'm just like, hey guys, we did awesome, but we can do even better. Like, so let's not rest here. Like, this is great that I've never seen it before in my life, 17 out of 17 PRs, but yeah. Let's keep improving, and let's keep shaving time off of our personal records. So,
yeah. And then what you're doing, where you're at in the process, right, is like you're building that culture. And I think that's another thing that really stood out for me from Sean is you're experiencing it, right? To build it from nothing is very, very difficult. It's not easy. Everything has to come together. Sustaining it, I would argue, like once the plane has reached 30,000 feet, it's easier to sustain something than it is to kind of get there in the first place. But neither are easy. But I think especially taking it from nothing and building it, and that's one thing that we've gotten to know the story and perceptions about Newbury Park and whatnot. You'll see detractors be like, "Oh, he just got lucky with these great kids." If you saw pictures of Nico and Jace when they were freshmen, I mean, this isn't basketball where you got a 6'5" 8th grader who's doing 360 dunks. Like, you'd have looked at any of those kids and there's nothing that would have told you, oh, this kid's gonna be a world beater one day. And it took years, as you saw in the book, right? It's not like all of a sudden first year they're out, they're winning. No, it was a process. Yeah. And yeah.
But it was good. It's good to read that, because sometimes, like you said, it's hard to build that culture. And sometimes as a coach, it can be frustrating. Like sometimes you almost feel like you want it more than the kids do. And to read, reading the book in real time as we're going through a cross country season, it's like kind of just reassuring, like, okay, it's not, Rome wasn't built in a day. Like, we're making progress. Kids are running faster. Like, they're buying in little by little. You just got to be patient with it.
Yeah, that's right. And that's, ultimately it's, I mean, I'm a parent myself with a couple teenagers, and right. You realize that as a parent too, like you can't want it more than they can. Like ultimately, um, there has to be that group of that one kid and then a couple kids or whatever that they, they want in,
Yeah.
and, and then it kind of goes from there.
You got some runners?
My daughter's just getting into it, and and my son has kind of dabbled a little bit, so not so much, but we'll see. I think it's going to
Okay.
be interesting with my younger ones are freshmen, and it's fun. But after doing this, I was really motivated to try to get back in shape. So it's been 5 or 6 months for me, um, getting back at it, getting to it, and starting to feel like a runner again, because I would really love to be able to participate, and like run with them. And um, it's yeah, and also just a little motivated by, it's the approach is so different now than what I knew.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious with myself, kind of, I want to try some of these things, and see what kind of effect it has. So obviously old man, right? But to a degree, I think I'm kind of learning them with myself, so it's fun.
You got some double threshold workouts in your future?
I'll, s- I'll start with a threshold workout,
There
I
you
hear
go.
you.
and
I hear you.
uh, but it's just I think like the biggest difference I see from Webb's time, from Goucher's time, is the rest days are truly rest. Capping that heart rate super low, and there's a purpose, and it's not just recovery, but kind of building that metabolism, that
Mm-hmm.
aerobic metabolism, and your body learning how to, there's a real purpose to going really slow. And I think it's not necessarily that new. I mean, the 10-man group and the coach, the coach there, I remember, hearing some guys saying that, look, these guys all post their stuff online, and you look at the fastest kids, and they might be running 7:30 or 8 minutes a mile on their easy days. That was not the case with Terrence Fagan, I bet.
No. Nope.
Right. And
Many PRs were run on easy days early on
yeah,
for sure.
yeah. So it's I think that's where some of the sport is just it's so different now, and
Yeah.
between the technology, the shoes, the knowledge. Um, but still, at the end of the day, I think the great pro, like, why are the great programs consistently great? When everyone has, to a degree, has access to this information, and that's the X factor, right? That's the culture and all that, um, and that's. I'm sorry, I'm wandering a little bit, but like one of the things that I super appreciated about Sean and seeing him, and just how it's like, look, this I think parallels, what I like to do in my own life now, and if you're gonna do it, like, why not make it epic? Like what he would do around the state meets with the kids in the tent, like make it memorable, make it fun, make it, and I think there's a lot of lessons there that go beyond running, right? That you
Mm-hmm.
can kind of take, and I look, and I spend most of my time in the business world, and I look at it and I'm like, yeah, I can learn from that.
Chris, you said when you went to write the book on Alan Webb, you started getting back in running shape so you could run with him. And you said after writing this book, you got running again. Do you feel when you dive into projects like this, you don't come out the same person?
That's a good question. Um, yeah, I mean, I think it's probably fair to say, that it's my first goal is really to honor the truth of what happened, right? It's not fiction. And like having the people that you're writing about say like, yeah, man, you captured it. But I think these you learn, yeah, you learn from these. And like for me, it honestly, that was the spark that I finished this, and it was like, and horrible, I had a really, really busy year doing this on top of my day job and family. And I needed to get my physical house in order, and was motivated to do it, and was like, well, I could just go out and jog every day and try to do that and be satisfied with that. Maybe I can do more. And I think that really is one of the things that now it's my own thing, but I've made that commitment to myself. Like, I was up at 3 o'clock this morning because I had a flight that left at boarded at 5:15. I was like, well, I'm gonna get my run in before I go. That never would have happened prior to doing this, but I think it kind of did, light a spark in that sense, with me. Um, and so yeah, I do think you come out on the other side, and it could be anything that you really kind of commit to, um, but come out a little bit different. And for me, I think that's the thing is it's kind of reinvigorated me in a sense where I'm, challenging myself to say, how do I take it to the next level? And not just that, but and I'm happier as a result.
So you said you had a day job, but I know when you're writing, you probably become obsessed and consumed. How do you manage everything?
I don't have any secrets. uh, this it's my family. I couldn't have done it without their support, because my job is, that's my primary role and responsibility. And I'm in this very small company, and that nothing got sacrificed there. And then, if anything, it was sleep. Was took a toll. That took a hit, and it was really having the understanding from my family that, hey, this there's I'm gonna need some time to focus on this in the weekend, late at night, early in the morning, and having their support made all the difference. So I think that's this was a true team effort in every sense, like between Andrew and Sean, and myself, and then for me on the home front. Couldn't have done it without that.
Do you have any times that I write in the morning, I write at night, or do you get it in when you can get it in? Do you have any rituals? Are you invoking the muse, anything like that?
Yeah, and again, this was such a different process, right, than the others. But I think I was um, definitely kind of ADD and totally undiagnosed when I was a kid, and through college and whatnot. And um, so I found that most of my the, that I would do most of my writing when it was like my full time thing, late at night and into the early hours. And that was just my routine, was to get headphones on and have a playlist that would kind of help dial me in, and that rarely deviated. And um, and then just having the physical sense of calm and whatnot to get into it. But yeah, I've just always it's a for me, like doing this with these guys was an opportunity to kind of tap into something that really brought me a lot of fulfillment. And this was a passion project. Did not do it for the money, for any other reason than like, man, this story needs to be told, and there's a part of me that really enjoys that process, and that was like, I wanted to experience that again.
Chris, I'm curious, going back to running with the Buffaloes, when you were in the process of doing that and everything, did you think it was going to turn into like a cult following in the same mentioned in the same regards as a book like Once a Runner?
Um, No, but I was so young and naive that I considered other places, other schools, and I remember I was literally like, stuck in traffic one day on the Bay Bridge in California, and I'd read everything and I've been pondering it, and like, man, wouldn't it be cool to read something like this? And and then I internally made the decision like I'm gonna do it. Like why not me? I got nothing to lose, and gave it a go. Um, and saved up my money, and I think I moved out there with 4 or 5 grand in my bank account, and did not have a contract, and just was committed. Like I'm going to see this thing through, and I ultimately was out of money at the end of the season, and took a couple jobs, waiting tables, teaching computer classes, and enough that would allow me to have blocks of time to write. And it was like a year and a half. So no, so I just when one of the characters dies in the book. Um, I think for me, the ante was upped pretty substantially because then I was like, I felt that it was not just for me, for the guys, it was like commemorating his memory in a sense. And so I felt, I kind of took that personally, like, okay, I need to do this. And then I had the reality check when I finished the manuscript, and I did not bother to play the game. I didn't, uh, know how the game was played, and I just submitted the manuscript blindly to publishers. So the books I liked that I read was most of them have, they have non-solicitation kind of policies, right? So most of them were returned to me and just like unread. Um, but a few of them read it and rejected it and said, we think this is really good. We don't think there's a market for it. So initially I had to self-publish it to get the publishing deal. And I was like, okay, well, they gave me some hope, and then that it was worth pursuing. Um, and and then I think but I still didn't know if I just spent a year and a half of my life and that was it, right? And then I gave the manuscript to the guys that I wrote about, and I was like, listen, I'm a big boy. Like, if this sucks, tell me, you know. And they read it and they were like, dude, you captured it. Like this is it. This is what we lived through. So that also gave me and emboldened me, right? Like, okay, I might have something here. But did I think it would, become what it is today? Like, no. But I think maybe the important thing, for any like aspiring writers out there is that I never thought about that. I just thought about I was committed to telling the story as best I could, and I didn't worry about anything else. I didn't worry about the publishing deal or how much money I would make. And when I meet aspiring authors and want to talk shop about it, I'll say that when the first thing people ask about is the money or things, then I'm like, man, I don't know if you're gonna see if it's hard. I don't know if you're gonna see it through. Um, what I'd love to hear is like, there's just a story that I just have to tell. It's just I gotta do it. I think it has to be kind of that level of conviction. Um, but it's just again my anecdotal experience. But yeah, no, so it's been awesome. It's really fun to see it still being picked up and read for the first time today by people. It's pretty wild, and but I'm really thankful that it's been able to um, inspire a lot of people along the way. That's really cool. That makes me really happy.
Yeah. We had Coach Bradley Souter on last week, and we were talking to him, and we were telling the fans that you were coming on this week. And one of his things, he said that when he has athletes that are going through an injury or having to take some time away from the sport, he always has them read Sub 4.
Oh, right on.
He says it's, they need to read that so they, see that what it's like people go through those sorts of things, and it helps them overcome and stay focused and locked in on what they need to do while they're recovering and going through that injury process.
Oh, very cool. That's neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's the intersection of that you guys have with wrestling and running too is, I mean, they're very similar in a lot of ways, right? And I think, with wrestling, living in Colorado, I remember that they'd sell out the Pepsi Center for their state wrestling championships. And you have also that subculture is like so rabid and devoted to it, um, that it's pretty neat. It's pretty neat to see. Like, no surprise to me that Mark Floriani, the founder of FlowTrack, right, was a runner in Texas. His brother was a wrestler.
Yeah.
So similar to you guys, and I see the overlap in the cultures.
Yeah. And for us too, is one of those things where, being 5'4", football, basketball, baseball, those sorts of things were never really on the menu growing up. So, running is definitely one of those things where people come in all shapes and sizes, and wrestling, you have your own weight class. So it was kind of built for us. And, you come off a cross country season, and there's a lot of people, I don't want to speak for Jimmy, but there was definitely a lot of people that I beat that I shouldn't have, just because I was in better shape than them.
Yeah, 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 totally agree. I mean, I was right there where, like, at basketball, I loved it, right? But I'm 5'7". Not too many, spots. You get.
Yeah.
I'm a Celtics fan. So there's this guy Isaiah Thomas, played for the Celtics for a number of years, and he's 5'8", and for my money, he's like one of the greatest athletes ever. Just to be able to do what he did. But you're right. That's one of the great things about running is there's guys that are 6'4" that are awesome. There's Adley Gebrselassie, 5'3".
Yep.
Um,
Right on.
I will say I try not to get too offended when Sean would say about the old coach, which he's just a wrestling coach. What does he know?
We've all known those
yeah.
wrestling coaches that
Yes,
cross
we
country, though,
have.
Jim.
We have. I had
Yeah.
one. Chris, is there anything that you got your eyes on? Anything you're working on?
Not now. Not for writing wise. I think I'm really excited to see how this goes, and to hear from people as they read it. I mean, I really feel like the younger readers, it just came out in September, so it has hardly been on the market. And you think back to when you were in high school, and I've met some I've met some high school kids recently that are runners, and this came out when most of them had already started high school. And so you think of it back to you guys or me when I was that age and just getting into running. Certainly, you have classes, your own academics, and your cross country season. So I don't think a lot of those kids have had a chance to read it yet. So I'm thinking like probably Christmas break, and then the summer is probably when it's going to start to take off with the younger audience. So yeah, so I'm right now I'm content to see what the future holds with this. And um, you know we'll see. Never say never. But for now, I think it was great to dip my toe back in the water, and I'm also content to pursue these other things. Like, I'm much more interested in exploring running on a personal level right now than writing about it. And there's only so many hours in the day, but it was a joy to work with these guys and to do this.
So
there,
sorry, Rich.
okay. Is there a turkey trot in your future?
Maybe. I mean, I think the what's interesting is what I've found at I think like old guy running is not interesting to anyone but old guys. But I know a friend of mine who's kind of a mentor named Steve, who he ran a 4:43 mile last year at age 53. And he never ran when he was young. I mean, he ran cross country. He was a soccer player, cyclist, but he's a super analytical engineer. And I see things like that, and that to me is super impressive. And so seeing how he did it, and so one of the things is, especially, I mean, I spent years as just totally sedentary, right? So completely deconditioned. My health was really not in a good place. Um, and part of what I've learned from him is, from this modern approach, is you can't rush it, and you just got to build the base, and you got to go, and it's going to happen. And you just have to let your body evolve and take it one step at a time. And if I the few times I've made it aborted attempts to get back in shape in recent years, it typically with me getting hurt when my head would get ahead of my body,
Mm-hmm.
and I try to do something and pull a calf, and then now I'm out for 2 months and I'm starting all over from ground zero. So I'm adopted an attitude right now. I'm just really enjoying the process, and I think at one point, if I can just be consistent, um, I might find myself in good enough shape where I'm say like, hey, let me test it out for nothing else other than my personal satisfaction. But I'm finding as I'm moving along, like it's fun, and it's just you get into it and you start thinking like, well, what could I do? And
Mm-hmm.
that's the most interesting thing about it. Like, there's nothing in it for me. I don't necessarily even have goals to compete, um, but just but I'm still finding that satisfaction of like improving. And I think that you could relate to that with 17 out of 17 kids running 5K. Like, it's just as meaningful for that kid, the 17th kid, to PR, and that sense of satisfaction they get from doing something that they hadn't done before is invigorating, right? And
Yep.
so yeah, so I just feel like um, it's just a fun process to go through, and trying to learn from other guys. So turkey trot, maybe it might be next in 2026. We'll
All right.
see.
I'm here for it.
Nice.
Rich, do you have anything else for Chris before we get in the final four?
I mean, I could talk all night about running and books and training and that stuff, but I want to be respectful of his time, and let's get into the final four.
All right. Chris, are you a coffee drinker?
Yes.
How do you brew your coffee and how do you take it?
I live in Massachusetts, man. It's a Dunkin'. Um, most up here is usually iced, but I prefer hot. Hot black Dunkin' coffee does it for me.
All
All
right.
right.
There we go. Chris, do you have any daily practices or rituals you do on a regular basis to show up as the strongest version of Chris Lear?
Uh, right now, yeah, it's just I've made that commitment to myself that if I have to get up at 3 in the morning and get a jog in, that's what I'm doing. And I find it's like more for my head than my body, but I found that I'm rediscovering how that helps me show up as the best person that I can be.
Right on. Do you keep a track of mileage or anything like that?
I'm not,
No.
again, this is with my personal journey and getting ahead of myself. I've decided that kind of the more unstructured approach is will keep me from getting ahead of myself and allow me to just keep coming day
Right
after
on.
day.
Chris, what are you listening to right now? Music, podcasts, audiobooks? Are you reading anything?
Yeah, all of the above. I think with podcasts, I spend a lot of time on the road, and so I do a lot of audiobooks and podcasts and a wide variety of stuff. But some people turn me on to Rich Roll and listen to some of his stuff recently. Just listened to your podcast with the Coach Drew University the other day. Enjoyed that. Um, and and then I'm a big Colin Cowherd fan. So that's his I like his podcast. I listen to that a lot. Um, Music wise, I'm all over the map, and it's I'd say that having a teenage daughter like Morgan Wallen is getting a lot of time on my playlist these days.
Mhm.
And yeah, and I think I've started some books, but not the book I'm just getting into is Danny Hurley's new book. Is with Ian O'Connor. Um, so I'm excited to read that because I'm just as a Jersey guy, I'm a
Mhm.
huge fan of the Hurleys
Yeah.
and everything they would do. So and I'm excited to see what this one will hold.
Right on. Chris, last one we got for you is a lighthearted one to close it out. Maybe it's a food item up there in Massachusetts. Maybe it's a unique beverage. You mentioned you have a teenage daughter. You mentioned Morgan Wallen. Maybe you're also a closet Swiftie. Do you have a guilty pleasure?
Uh, Man, guilty is the key thing. Guilty pleasure. I don't know if I have a guilty pleasure, but I will say that I well, my wife trying to gambling. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
so
Okay.
I'm gonna
That might be a
I'm gonna
first on here on Airey Bros for us, Jim.
Yeah, definitely. What's your
I'm
what's
gonna.
your poison? What are you going to the tables? You doing it online? Sports?
Oh man, I gotta
All
tell
of
you the
it?
truth. I gotta tell you the truth. It's a bit of all of it.
All right, all right.
So I, li- I you know you don't have to twist my arm to go to Encore, and playing blackjack, craps, 3 card. I love it all, and sports gambling, and some on the weekend, and the one that is killing my wife and family right now is sports cards. I kind of
Okay.
got back into that, and during the
Like
pandemic,
baseball cards?
yeah,
Yeah.
baseball cards, football cards, and
Okay. Little Gary
there's an
V
app.
style.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the one where the package comes in the mail, and they're like, "Are you kidding me? Like more baseball cards?" Yeah, football, basketball cards. So yeah, that's definitely, I guess, my guilty pleasure. I don't really feel guilty about it, but
What is your prized possession when it comes to cards?
gosh, what's my favorite one? Um, I have a Mickey Mantle. My dad passed away this year, and he brought us up as Yankee fans and Giants fans, and Mickey Mantle is his favorite player. So I have a 1953 Bowman, Mickey Mantle, Hank Bauer, and Yogi Berra on the same card. And that's my prized possession because Mickey Mantle is my dad's favorite player, and so that would be it.
Nice. Very cool. Very cool. You have it like in a nice case and everything displayed.
That one I keep tucked away because I don't want it to get damaged.
Keep it out of the
Yeah,
sunlight.
yeah, yeah. But yeah. I need to be a little more organized with them. And if you talk to my family, I need to sell them. But yeah,
Do you sell any of them or are you just collecting them?
theoretically, I'm going to sell them at some point.
Okay.
But yeah. So it's I don't know, it's a silly thing, but I do enjoy it. I was just actually talking to a friend of mine, a couple of friends today about trading cards for track. Like I would love to see. So for anyone who's a dork enough like me who's into this stuff, that now that the game has changed, and so they make cards that are limited edition, and they have game worn pieces of uniforms in the cards and all sorts of things. And I always thought that there's a market for that for track, right? Like if you had a series of cards that came out around the Olympics, and you had, even if you just did a limited run with the stars, um, I think more difficult to do, non-unionized and everything else. But that's one of the things I think about. Like, hey, if I was going to do something running related and creative, at the same time, like that's something I would like to do down the line. Is it'd be fun to try to make that happen. And like it'd be cool to open up a pack of cards and get a Sidney McLaughlin autograph card with, a piece of her spike from the Olympics, something like that. I think there's a market there for that. If nothing else, I like it, so it'd make me happy. So that's enough, maybe.
Well, if you got me, I would definitely buy a couple packs of those for sure. So you got at least one buyer.
Nice. Awesome. I'll call you later. We'll figure it
Sweet.
out.
Chris, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your work. Really enjoyed the book. Hopefully the right people get it because I know it inspired me and I'm not even a runner. So thank you so much for your time tonight.
Super appreciate you guys. It's really been a pleasure. Nice to connect with some Jersey guys. And Rich, this is super exciting. You invigorated me hearing a 17 for 17. I remember that. And so it's been a pleasure, and we will be in touch. Thank you.
Well, we do appreciate you, Chris. Thank you for your work, and you've inspired me and gotten me out of some slumps when it comes to training and running and got me back out the door. I would definitely be sharing the book with the team. Hopefully you can inspire them to create a little bit more culture down at the school here and continue to run some PR. So thank you for all you've done for the sport.
Thanks so much, guys. Super appreciate it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is Chris Lear. Make sure you check those links in the show notes. Go buy Beyond Fast. It's an amazing book. You'll love it. Give it to a young runner for Christmas. It'll make a great stocking stuffer. That is us. That is all for us this week. We will be back with a special episode on Sunday. Emily Coggin is going to be joining us to recap her epic race at Run Rabbit Run 100. Then on Monday, we will have Nicole Starks from Rutgers University joining us to talk about cross country in the Garden State. And on Wednesday, we will be having our Jayhawk conference Cross Country Coaches XC Roundtable. So we're excited to talk to some of our friends from the Jayhawk Conference. Enjoy the rest of your week. Have a great weekend, and we